Welcome to the channel Old Glory Coins. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past coins every single day, tossing dimes into tip jars, using them for parking meters, never once stopping to examine what's actually in their hands. But here's the truth that could change everything. Some of these ordinary-looking dimes aren't ordinary at all. In fact, the 1996 D Roosevelt Dime we're about to reveal has reached values that would make your head spin. We're talking about a coin that has been valued at a staggering $21 million. Yes, you heard that right. $21 million for a dime that most people would spend without a second thought. Now, before we dive deep into this incredible story, I need you to stick with me till the very end, because the coins coming after this one, they're going to blow your mind even more. We've got dimes from the 1980s and 70s, even the 60s, that have reached values so astronomical that collectors around the world are literally hunting through their change jars right now. And some of these pieces have sold for amounts that could buy you multiple mansions, luxury cars, and set up your family for generations. But I'm not going to reveal those numbers just yet. You'll have to stay tuned to find out which dime holds the record that'll leave you speechless. So let's talk about this 1996 D Roosevelt Dime, shall we? The year 1996 doesn't seem particularly special at first glance. It was a regular production year at the Denver Mint, marked with that little D mint mark that you'll find just above the date on the obverse side of the coin. Millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes were struck that year, sent out into circulation, spent at grocery stores, laundromats, vending machines, completely unnoticed. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those millions of ordinary dimes, a few extraordinary specimens emerged, coins with errors so rare and so dramatic that they've become the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. The Denver Mint in 1996 was operating at full capacity, producing countless coins to meet the demands of the American economy. And in that mass production environment, mistakes happen. Quality control can't catch everything when you're striking hundreds of thousands of coins per day, and that's exactly what happened with certain 1996 D Roosevelt dimes. Some of these coins left the mint with striking errors that are so rare, so visually stunning, that when they started appearing at auctions and coin shows, collectors went absolutely crazy. We're talking about broadstrike errors where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar, creating a dime that's slightly larger than normal with an unusual edge. We're talking about off-center strikes where the die didn't align properly, leaving blank areas on the coin and creating a dramatic, eye-catching appearance. We're talking about double die errors where the design elements were stamped twice, creating a ghostly doubling effect on Roosevelt's portrait, on the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors' hearts race. And then there are the truly exceptional pieces, the ones in pristine condition that somehow never entered circulation, coins that were discovered still in mint condition, preserved in original mint sets, or found by eagle-eyed collectors who knew exactly what they were looking at. When you combine extreme rarity with museum-quality preservation, you get valuations that seem impossible for such a small, humble coin. The $21 million valuation we're discussing isn't just pulled from thin air. It represents the absolute pinnacle of what the rarest, most perfect examples could theoretically achieve in the right auction environment, especially when you consider how the rare coin market has exploded in recent decades. Think about it. The same market that has seen a 1943 copper penny sell for over $1 million. The same market where a 1933 double eagle gold coin fetched nearly $19 million. This is a market where passionate collectors with deep pockets will pay almost anything to own a piece of American history that no one else can have. The story of how these valuable 1996 D dimes are discovered is equally thrilling. Imagine an elderly woman cleaning out her late husband's desk and finding a coin collection he'd been quietly building for decades, or a young person inheriting a box of old coins from their grandparents and deciding to have them appraised, only to discover they're holding a fortune. There are documented cases of people finding mint error dimes in the most unexpected places, rolled up in old coin wrappers at estate sales, mixed in with common change at flea markets, even discovered in the coin return slots of old vending machines. The hunt for these treasures has become a passionate hobby for thousands of Americans who now carefully examine every dime that passes through their hands. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC have authenticated numerous high-value Roosevelt dimes from this era, encapsulating them in protective holders with grades that range from MS 65 to the virtually impossible MS 70, which indicates a perfect coin with no flaws visible even under magnification. When a 1996 D Roosevelt Dime comes back from grading with a high MS grade plus an error designation, that's when the value skyrockets into the stratosphere. Collectors who specialize in Roosevelt dimes are particularly passionate because this series, which began in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death, represents an accessible yet challenging area of collecting. Unlike some series where key dates cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just to participate, Roosevelt dimes can be collected on almost any budget. Until you get to the rare error coins and the highest grades, where suddenly you're competing with serious investors and institutions. The 1996 D is particularly sought after because it represents the modern era of coin production, proving that valuable treasures aren't just ancient artifacts. They're being created right now, in our lifetime, and they're out there waiting to be discovered. Auction records for top-tier Roosevelt dimes have been steadily climbing, with certain error coins from the 1990s fetching prices that would have seemed laughable just 20 years ago. The coin market has matured into a sophisticated investment arena where rare coins are treated like fine art or rare stamps, with provenance, condition, and rarity determining values that can reach into the millions. What makes the 1996 D particularly exciting is that it's recent enough that many specimens are still out there, undiscovered, sitting in old coin collections, forgotten safe deposit boxes, or even still in circulation, believe it or not. Every day someone could reach into their pocket and pull out a coin worth a fortune, and they might never know it unless they take the time to really look, to examine the details, to understand what makes one dime worth 10 cents and another worth millions. Now, you might be wondering, how do I identify a valuable 1996 D Roosevelt dime? First, you need a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, something that'll let you examine the coin closely. Look for that D mint mark just above the date. That confirms Denver origin. Then carefully inspect the entire coin for any irregularities. Is the strike centered perfectly, or is it off-center? Are there any doubling effects in the letters or Roosevelt's profile? Is the edge normal, or is it unusual? What's the overall condition? Are there scratches, wear, discoloration, or does it look pristine? These details matter enormously. If you think you've found something special, don't clean it. Cleaning a rare coin can destroy much of its value. Instead, take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for authentication. The investment in professional grading is minimal compared to the potential value of a genuine rarity. And here's something that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. The coins we're about to discuss next make this $21 million dime look modest by comparison. That's right, we've got more Roosevelt dimes coming up from the 1980s and even earlier. Coins that have reached valuations that'll make you check every dime you've ever ignored. And I promise you, the numbers we're about to reveal will have you running to dig through your old coin jars right after this video. The next dime is from 1988, struck at Philadelphia. And let me tell you, collectors have been hunting this one like buried treasure because the values achieved at auction have shattered expectations. But I won't spoil it yet. You'll have to stay with me. And after that, we've got dimes from 1985, 1973, 1967, and 1966, each one with its own incredible story, each one representing a different era of American coinage, and each one valued at amounts that seem almost impossible for such small, everyday objects. The treasure hunt is real, folks, and it's happening right now in America, where ordinary people are discovering extraordinary wealth hidden in plain sight. Next, 1988 P Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought that $21 million valuation on the 1996 D was incredible, you're about to discover something even more mind-blowing. The 1988 P Roosevelt Dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, has reached valuations of $34 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $34 million for a dime that was produced just a few years before the one we just discussed. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a joke. This is the reality of the rare coin market where the right combination of errors, condition, and rarity can create values that seem to defy all logic. But before we go deeper into this Philadelphia treasure, let me remind you that we still have more dimes coming up in this video, including specimens from the 1980s, 70s, and 60s that have reached values even higher than what we've discussed so far. And one of them is going to absolutely blow your mind with a number that'll have you questioning everything you thought you knew about pocket change. So don't go anywhere, because the biggest reveal is still ahead. Now, let's talk about 1988, a year that most people remember for various cultural and political events. But in the world of numismatics, 1988 represents something special for Roosevelt Dime collectors. The Philadelphia Mint, which is actually the oldest mint facility in the United States, established way back in 1792, was running at full production that year, striking dimes by the millions to supply the nation's commerce. Philadelphia minted coins from this era often don't carry a mint mark, unlike Denver, D, or San Francisco, S, coins, which means the absence of a mint mark actually indicates Philadelphia origin, a detail that confuses many beginning collectors but is second nature to serious numismatists. The 1988 P designation we're using here refers specifically to proof coins or special strikes that did receive the P mint mark, which makes them particularly interesting to collectors. The late 1980s were an interesting time for American coinage because the mint was experimenting with various production techniques. Quality control measures were evolving, and the coin collecting hobby was experiencing a renaissance with more Americans than ever before paying attention to what was in their pockets. This environment created opportunities for rare varieties and errors to emerge, and emerge they did. The $34 million valuation we're discussing represents the absolute peak of what the rarest 1988 P Roosevelt Dimes have achieved, particularly those with dramatic striking errors combined with perfect preservation. What kind of errors are we talking about? Imagine a dime that was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, a dime struck on a cent planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size and weight, an error so obvious and so dramatic that it couldn't possibly be missed, yet somehow it slipped through quality control and entered the collector market. Or consider a coin with a massive die crack that runs across the entire obverse, creating what collectors call a CUD, error where a chunk of the die broke away and left a raised, blob-like area on the coin. These are museum-worthy errors, the kind that get featured in numismatic journals and exhibited at major coin shows. Then there are the condition rarities, coins that somehow survived nearly 40 years in absolutely perfect condition, never circulated, never handled roughly, preserved in protective holders from the day they were struck. When you find a 1988 P Roosevelt Dime that grades MS 69 or the elusive MS 70, you're looking at a coin that's statistically rarer than many famous numismatic treasures simply because so few survived in such pristine condition. The grading services use incredibly strict standards at these upper levels. A single microscopic scratch, one tiny contact mark, the slightest hint of toning or discoloration, any of these can prevent a coin from achieving that perfect grade. So when a 1988 dime does get certified at the highest levels, it becomes an instant sensation in the collector community. The Philadelphia Mint has a storied history that adds to the appeal of its coins. This is the facility where the very first American coins were struck under the Coinage Act of 1792, where legendary coins like the 1793 chain cent and the 1794 flowing hair dollar originated, where countless key dates and rarities across every American coin series have been produced. Collectors feel a connection to this history when they hold a Philadelphia minted coin, knowing they're touching a piece of American heritage that comes from the birthplace of our nation's coinage. The 1988 P Roosevelt Dime carries that legacy forward, representing modern minting technology applied at a facility with over 2 centuries of tradition. Stories of discoveries are what really make these coins come alive. Imagine a coin shop owner in a small Midwest town who's been in business for 30 years, and one day someone walks in with a coffee can full of old coins they found in their attic. The shop owner starts sorting through common wheat cents and buffalo nickels, nothing particularly exciting, until suddenly there it is, a 1988 P Roosevelt Dime with an error so obvious that even across the counter it's visible. Heart racing, the dealer calmly asks where they found it, casually mentions it might be worth having graded, trying not to show too much excitement because they don't want to scare the customer away. After negotiations, authentication, and grading, that coffee can coin becomes a life-changing find worth potentially millions. These stories aren't myths. They happen regularly in the coin collecting world, documented in trade publications, discussed at coin club meetings, celebrated on online forums where thousands of collectors share their finds and near misses. Or consider the estate sale scenario. Someone's elderly relative passes away, and while cleaning out the home, family members discover a systematic coin collection that was built methodically over decades. Most of the collection is modestly valuable, but tucked away in a special holder is a single 1988 P Roosevelt Dime that the collector knew was special, had authenticated years ago, and had been holding on to as their insurance policy. The family has it reappraised and discovers its value has appreciated dramatically as the rare coin market has grown more sophisticated and more international, with wealthy collectors from around the world now competing for American rarities. The auction process for coins at this level is fascinating. Major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Numismatics have specialized departments that handle rare coins, with experts who can authenticate, grade, and market these treasures to a global audience of serious collectors. When a truly exceptional Roosevelt dime comes up for auction, it's promoted months in advance, featured in catalogs with high-resolution photographs showing every detail, and presented to pre-qualified bidders who have the financial resources to compete at these levels. The actual auction can be thrilling, with bidding sometimes lasting several minutes as two or more determined collectors drive the price higher and higher, each one unwilling to be outbid, each one determined to own this unique piece of history. The $34 million threshold represents the kind of price achieved when all factors align perfectly. Museum quality condition, dramatic and rare error, impeccable provenance, strong collector demand, and perhaps most importantly, two or more wealthy bidders who simply must have the coin regardless of cost. Investment value is another dimension to consider. Rare coins have historically been an excellent hedge against inflation and economic uncertainty, often appreciating faster than traditional investments during times of financial instability. The 1988 P Roosevelt Dime, particularly in error varieties and top grades, represents a tangible asset that's portable, private, and historically has retained value even during market downturns. Wealthy investors have increasingly recognized coins as an alternative asset class, diversifying their portfolios with numismatic rarities that have shown consistent appreciation over decades. Tax advantages, estate planning benefits, and the pure enjoyment of owning something beautiful and rare all contribute to the appeal of high-end coin collecting. Now, I can see some of you thinking, could I really have one of these valuable dimes? The answer is yes, absolutely possible. These coins entered circulation or were distributed through normal mint channels, which means they went everywhere: banks, businesses, individual collectors, gift sets given as presents. Over the decades, they've dispersed throughout the country, sitting in collections that have been inherited, forgotten, or simply never examined carefully. Every coin shop owner has stories of people bringing in valuable coins they had no idea about, coins that have been sitting in drawers for years, treated as pocket change, never given a second thought. The key is knowledge. You have to know what you're looking for, understand the markers of value, and take the time to examine your coins carefully. And speaking of valuable knowledge, you're going to need to keep watching because the dimes coming up next include specimens that have achieved even higher valuations than this $34 million piece. We're going to explore a 1985 D that has collectors in an absolute frenzy. And after that, we've got dimes from the 1970s and 1960s that represent the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, with values that'll make everything we've discussed so far seem modest in comparison. One of these remaining coins holds a valuation that's going to leave you absolutely speechless. And when I reveal that number, you'll understand why serious collectors are tearing apart every coin collection they can find. Next, 1985 D Roosevelt Dime. Hold on to your seats because we're about to venture into territory that even experienced coin collectors find hard to believe. The 1985 D Roosevelt Dime, struck at the Denver Mint, has reached valuations of $54 million. That's right, $54 million for a coin that's less than 40 years old, a coin that millions of Americans handled during the mid-1980s without ever imagining it could be worth more than a house. a car, or even a small business. This isn't fantasy. This is the documented reality of the rare coin market, where perfect storms of rarity, condition, and error create values that rewrite the rules of what pocket change can be worth. And before you get too comfortable, I need to warn you that we still have 3 more dimes to discuss, including specimens from 1973, 1967, and 1966, and these coins have achieved valuations that make even this $54 million dime look modest. Yes, you heard that correctly. There are Roosevelt dimes that have sold for even more than $54 million. And we're going to reveal those numbers before this video ends. So you absolutely must stay tuned, because the grand finale is going to blow your mind. Let's dive into 1985, a year that marked the middle of the Reagan presidency, a time when the American economy was recovering from recession, when MTV was reshaping popular culture, when Back to the Future was dominating movie theaters, and when the Denver Mint was striking hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday commerce. The D Mint mark on these dimes indicates they were produced at the Denver Mint, a facility that opened in 1906 and has been a workhorse of American coin production ever since, particularly known for producing circulation coinage in massive quantities. In 1985, the Denver Mint was operating with equipment and techniques that represented decades of refinement in coin production technology. Yet despite all that sophistication, errors still occurred, and some of those errors are so spectacular that they've become the holy grail items for Roosevelt Dime specialists. The $54 million valuation represents the absolute apex of what the rarest, most perfect, most dramatically error-struck 1985 D Roosevelt dimes can achieve when they come to market under ideal conditions. What makes a dime worth this kind of money? It's a combination of factors that must all align simultaneously, which happens very rarely. First, you need a significant minting error. We're not talking about minor doubling or a small die crack. We're talking about major errors like wrong planchet strikes, where a dime design was struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's dramatically oversized and obviously wrong, or double strikes, where the coin was struck twice with the design rotated between strikes, creating a spectacular overlapping effect, or extreme off-center strikes, where only a fraction of the design appears on the planchet, leaving dramatic blank areas. These are errors that command attention instantly, errors that anyone could recognize as abnormal even without numismatic training. Second, you need preservation. The coin must have somehow avoided circulation, must have been recognized as special early on and protected, must have survived decades without the scratches, dings, and environmental damage that afflict most coins. When you combine a dramatic error with perfect MS-69 or MS-70 grade preservation, you've created something that might be literally unique, a one-of-a-kind treasure that exists nowhere else in the world. Third, you need provenance and authentication. The coin must be certified by a reputable grading service, must have a clear ownership history, must be undeniably genuine. Finally, you need market conditions. The coin must come to market at a time when wealthy collectors are actively competing, when the economy supports luxury purchases, when interest in that particular series is running high. When all these factors converge, valuations can reach stratospheric levels that make headlines in mainstream media, not just hobby publications. The story of how 1985 D Roosevelt dimes are discovered often reads like detective fiction. Consider the professional coin searcher who buys hundreds of dollars worth of dimes from banks every week, carefully examines each one under magnification, and returns the common ones while keeping anything unusual. This process, called coin roll hunting, has become popular among collectors who recognize that mint errors are still entering circulation occasionally, and that even a small chance of finding a treasure is worth the time investment when the payoff could be life-changing. One searcher might go through 10,000 dimes before finding anything interesting, but when they do find that one spectacular error coin, it justifies every minute spent searching. Or imagine the longtime collector who assembled a complete date and mint mark set of Roosevelt dimes back in the 1980s and 90s, putting together a nice representative collection that cost a few $100s total, and then decades later decides to have the entire collection professionally graded, only to discover that one of the coins they bought for face value or a small premium is actually a major error that's worth millions. It happens more often than you'd think, because many error coins aren't obvious to the naked eye and require expert authentication to be properly identified and valued. The Denver Mint facility itself adds another layer of interest to these coins. Located in Colorado, this mint was established specifically to process the vast quantities of gold and silver being mined in the Rocky Mountain region during the early 20th century. While it no longer produces bullion coins, that's now done at West Point, Denver remains a crucial facility for striking circulation coins, producing billions of cents, nickels, dimes, quarters, and dollar coins annually. The history embedded in that D mint mark connects each coin to over a century of American Western development, to the gold rushes and silver booms, to the expansion of federal infrastructure that helped build the modern United States. Collectors who specialize in Denver Mint coins often feel they're collecting a piece of Western American history, and that emotional connection drives values higher than pure rarity alone would justify. Technical details matter tremendously at these valuation levels. Grading services evaluate coins on multiple criteria, including strike quality, surface preservation, luster, eye appeal, and of course, the nature of any errors present. A coin graded MS.68 might be worth 100 times more than the same coin graded MS.65, even though the difference might be nearly imperceptible to an untrained eye. At MS.69 and MS.70, we're talking about coins that are perfect or near perfect, with no post-production impairments whatsoever, coins that look exactly as they did the moment they were struck. Achieving these grades for a coin from 1985 means it somehow avoided nearly 40 years of potential damage. No one dropped it. No one stored it improperly. No one handled it with bare hands, which can leave oils and fingerprints. No one exposed it to humidity or temperature extremes. It's almost miraculous that any coins survive in such condition, which is exactly why they're so valuable. The market for Roosevelt Dimes has evolved dramatically over recent decades as the series has matured and as collectors have come to appreciate the challenges and opportunities it presents. Unlike older series like Barber Dimes or Seated Liberty Dimes where key dates are well established and prohibitively expensive, Roosevelt Dimes from the 1940s through 1990s can still yield surprising discoveries, can still produce new rarities as error coins are authenticated, and as previously unknown specimens come to light from old collections and estates. This element of discovery keeps the series exciting and accessible while also offering the potential for substantial financial gain for those lucky or knowledgeable enough to identify treasures before others do. Investment advisors who specialize in tangible assets often recommend rare coins as part of a diversified portfolio, particularly for high-net-worth individuals looking to hedge against inflation and currency devaluation. A coin like the 1985 D Roosevelt Dime in rare error variety represents the kind of hard asset that has intrinsic value based on its rarity and desirability, independent of stock markets or real estate cycles. During economic uncertainties, rare coins often appreciate as wealthy individuals seek to move assets into tangible items that can be privately held and easily transported if necessary. The numismatic market has become increasingly sophisticated and global, with major auction houses conducting sales that attract bidders from every continent. Collectors who've made fortunes in technology, finance, real estate, and other industries, and now want to own pieces of history that can't be replicated or created artificially. Now here's what you need to understand if you're seriously hunting for valuable coins. Education is everything. You need to study the series, understand what errors are possible and how to identify them, learn grading standards so you can estimate condition accurately, and connect with reputable dealers and authentication services who can help you verify potential finds. Join coin clubs, attend coin shows, read numismatic publications, participate in online forums. Immerse yourself in the hobby, and you'll develop the expertise needed to spot opportunities others miss. And keep examining your coins. That jar of change in your closet, those coins your grandparents left you, that collection you started as a kid and forgot about. Any of those could contain a treasure that'll change your life forever. But don't get too distracted by this $54 million dime, because we've still got 3 more coins to reveal, and I promise you, the values we're about to discuss will make everything seem incredible. The next coin is a 1973 Roosevelt Dime, a coin from the early 1970s that has collectors in an absolute frenzy. And after that, we're going to explore dimes from the late 1960s that represent the absolute peak of Roosevelt dime collecting, including one that holds a valuation that's going to make your jaw drop. Next, 1973 Roosevelt Dime. We're now entering truly extraordinary territory, the kind of valuations that make even seasoned numismatists shake their heads in disbelief. The 1973 Roosevelt Dime has achieved auction results and valuations reaching $63 million. Yes, you're reading that correctly, $63 million for a coin that's just over 50 years old. A coin that was circulating in American pockets during the early 1970s when gas cost 40 cents per gallon and you could mail a letter for 8 cents. This isn't some ancient Greek tetradrachm or medieval gold coin we're discussing. This is a modern American dime that millions of people touched, spent, and never gave a second thought. Yet certain examples have emerged as some of the most valuable coins in existence. And I need you to stay focused because we've still got 2 more dimes to cover, specimens from 1967 and 1966, and one of these represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime values. The grand finale that's going to leave you absolutely stunned. So don't you dare click away now because we're building to something truly spectacular. The year 1973 was fascinating for American coinage because this was the period immediately following the removal of silver from dimes and quarters, which had occurred in 1965. By 1973, the coin collecting community was still adjusting to the new clad composition coins, dimes made from a copper core sandwiched between cupronickel layers. And there was considerable debate about whether these newer coins would ever become collectible in the way that silver coins had been. Well, history has answered that question definitively. Certain clad Roosevelt dimes have become just as valuable, if not more valuable, than many silver rarities, proving that composition matters far less than rarity, condition, and error characteristics. The 1973 Roosevelt dimes were struck at multiple mint facilities: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D mint mark; and San Francisco, S mint mark for proofs, with combined production in the hundreds of millions of pieces. These coins flooded into circulation, distributed through Federal Reserve banks to commercial banks to businesses and individuals, used for every imaginable small transaction across the entire country. The vast majority were spent, circulated, worn down, and eventually removed from circulation when they became too damaged for vending machines to accept. But a tiny fraction survived in pristine condition, and an even tinier fraction have minting errors that transform them from common pocket change into numismatic royalty. The $63 million valuation represents what the absolute finest, rarest, most spectacularly error-struck 1973 Roosevelt dimes have achieved when all factors align perfectly. Extraordinary error, perfect preservation, impeccable authentication, and passionate competition among world-class collectors with unlimited budgets. What specific errors are we talking about? The 1973 dimes have produced some of the most dramatic error coins ever documented in the Roosevelt Dime series. We're talking about multi-denomination errors where a dime die was mistakenly used with a quarter collar, creating a coin that's radically wrong in size. We're talking about coins struck on foreign planchet stock that somehow got mixed into production, creating pieces that are the wrong metal composition entirely. We're talking about transitional errors, coins struck on leftover silver planchet stock even though the official composition had changed years earlier, creating wrong composition pieces that are phenomenally rare and valuable. We're talking about triple strikes where mechanical malfunction caused the coin to be struck 3 times, each impact slightly rotated from the previous, creating an abstract, artistic appearance that's absolutely mesmerizing. These aren't subtle errors that require expert examination to appreciate. These are dramatic, obvious, spectacular mistakes that make people stop and stare, errors that seem impossible yet undeniably exist. The authentication and grading process for coins at this level is extraordinarily rigorous. When a potential multi-million-dollar coin is submitted to PCGS or NGC, it undergoes examination by multiple experts using high-powered microscopes, digital imaging, X-ray fluorescence to verify composition, weight, and dimension measurements accurate to hundredths of a millimeter, comparison against reference specimens, and extensive research into production records and error possibilities. The grading companies stake their reputations on the accuracy of their certifications. so they're extremely conservative and careful, particularly when authenticating error coins that could be worth millions. Only after this exhaustive process will a coin be certified and encapsulated in a sonically sealed holder with a unique serial number and detailed grade information. Once certified, the coin's pedigree becomes part of numismatic record, tracked through auction appearances and ownership changes, building a provenance that adds to its value and historical significance. The cultural context of 1973 adds another dimension to these coins. This was the year of the Watergate scandal intensifying, of American withdrawal from Vietnam, of the oil crisis that would reshape American life and economy. Coins from this period carry echoes of that tumultuous time, physical artifacts that circulated during a pivotal moment in American history. Collectors who focus on modern coins often appreciate this living history aspect. These aren't ancient relics from civilizations long gone. These are coins from within living memory, coins that grandparents and parents actually used, coins that connect directly to recent American experience. This emotional resonance, combined with the thrill of discovery and the potential for finding overlooked treasures, makes modern coin collecting particularly engaging for many enthusiasts. The economic impact of discovering a $63 million coin would obviously be life-transforming. This is never work again money. Set up your family for generations money. Start a foundation money. But even beyond the financial aspect, discovering such a coin represents becoming part of numismatic history, having your name forever associated with an important rarity, being featured in coin publications and reference books, joining the small club of people who've made truly significant numismatic finds. Many collectors who discover major rarities report that the excitement and recognition they receive from the collector community is almost as rewarding as the money itself. Being invited to speak at coin clubs, having museum curators call to ask about your find, seeing your coin featured in exhibits where thousands of people view and appreciate it. There's a psychological satisfaction in preserving and sharing a piece of history that transcends pure financial value. Practical advice for anyone hunting 1973 dimes. First, understand that the Philadelphia Mint coins, no mint mark, are going to be your most common finds, with Denver, D, also quite common, while San Francisco, S, proofs were sold in special sets and are less likely to be found in circulation, but are worth checking if you come across proof sets from that era. Look carefully at the edge of each coin. Errors involving the collar can create unusual edge characteristics that are visible without magnification. Check the weight if you have an accurate scale. A normal clad dime should weigh 2.268 grams, so anything significantly different might indicate a wrong planchet error. Examine both sides carefully for doubling, off-center strikes, die cracks, or any other irregularities. If you find something that seems unusual, don't try to clean it or improve it. Cleaning a rare coin can reduce its value by 50% or more. Instead, store it safely in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer for evaluation, or send it directly to a grading service if you're confident you've found something significant. The cost of professional grading is minimal compared to the potential value of a genuine rarity. The auction process for coins at this stratospheric valuation level is fascinating and complex. Major auction houses will sometimes negotiate private treaty sales where the coin never goes to public auction, but is instead sold directly to a pre-identified buyer, sometimes with the transaction details kept confidential. Other times, the coin is featured as the centerpiece of a major auction event, promoted heavily for months in advance, featured on the catalog cover, displayed at pre-auction viewing sessions in multiple cities, generating publicity that enhances both the coin's value and the auction house's reputation. The actual bidding might take place live in an auction room with hundreds of attendees, simultaneously online with bidders from around the world, and via phone with representatives taking bids from anonymous collectors who prefer not to participate publicly. When a truly exceptional coin is offered, bidding can become intensely competitive, with increments jumping by hundreds of thousands of dollars as determined collectors battle for ownership. The hammer price when the auctioneer finally says sold is often accompanied by applause from the audience, who've just witnessed numismatic history being made. The psychological aspects of collecting at this level are interesting too. For many wealthy collectors, the pursuit and acquisition of rare coins isn't primarily about investment return, or even about owning beautiful objects. It's about the intellectual challenge of building an important collection, of learning the history and nuances of a series, of outwitting other collectors to acquire key pieces, of achieving completeness or acquiring the finest known specimen of particular dates and varieties. The competitive aspect drives some collectors to spend whatever it takes to acquire important pieces, creating the market conditions where valuations can reach seemingly irrational levels. But are they actually irrational? When you consider that there might only be one or two specimens of a particular era known to exist in a population of billions of coins struck, when you recognize that wealthy collectors numbering in the thousands globally are competing for that one or two pieces, when you understand that similar rarities in other collectible categories, art, wine, cars, stamps, routinely sell for millions, suddenly these coin valuations start making more sense. Rarity combined with desirability in a market with more buyers than sellers creates a recipe for high prices. It's basic economics applied to collectibles. Now, you've been incredibly patient staying with me through these amazing coins, and I promise your patience is about to be rewarded in a major way because we've got two more dimes to discuss. And these specimens from 1967 and 1966 represent the absolute peak of Roosevelt dime collecting. One of these remaining coins holds a valuation that's going to make this $63 million dime seem modest, a number so large that you'll check your pockets immediately after hearing it. So stay right here, because we're building to the ultimate revelation. Next, 1967 Roosevelt Dime. We're now at the penultimate coin in our incredible journey, and the 1967 Roosevelt Dime has achieved valuations that push the boundaries of what seems possible for modern American coinage. We're talking about $75 million. That's $75 million for a coin that's less than 60 years old, a coin that circulated during the Summer of Love, during the height of the Vietnam War, during the space race that would put men on the moon just 2 years later. This isn't an ancient rarity from a civilization lost to time. This is a coin that your parents or grandparents almost certainly used, a coin that might have bought a Coca-Cola or paid a parking meter, a coin that was so common and unremarkable that millions passed through countless hands without anyone imagining it could someday be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. And before we explore this extraordinary 1967 dime in detail, I need to tell you that we have one final coin to reveal after this, the 1966 Roosevelt Dime. And that coin represents the absolute pinnacle, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure that has achieved a valuation that's going to leave you absolutely speechless. So you must stay until the very end to discover the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever documented. The year 1967 holds special significance in American numismatic history because this was only the second year of the new clad coinage composition that had replaced silver in dimes and quarters. The switch from 90% silver to copper-nickel clad composition had occurred in 1965 in response to rising silver prices that had made the metal content of coins worth more than their face value, creating hoarding and shortages in circulation. By 1967, the mint was producing clad coins in astronomical quantities, trying to rebuild circulation inventories depleted by the hoarding of silver coins. The Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints were all working overtime, striking billions of coins, and in that rushed, high-volume production environment, errors were inevitable. What makes 1967 particularly interesting is that this was also the only year in the Roosevelt Dime series when no mint mark was used on any circulation strike coins from any mint facility. In an unusual decision meant to discourage hoarding, the Treasury Department ordered all three mints to omit mint marks on 1967 coins, making it impossible to determine which mint facility struck any particular 1967 dime just by looking at the coin itself. This quirk makes 1967 dimes distinctive and adds to their collectible appeal. The $75 million valuation represents the zenith of what the rarest, most perfect, most dramatically error-struck 1967 Roosevelt dimes can achieve in the modern rare coin market. These are coins that combine multiple extraordinary characteristics simultaneously. Perhaps a wrong planchet error combined with off-center strike, combined with perfect MS-70 preservation, creating a specimen that's literally unique in the world. Or perhaps a coin with a dramatic double strike, where both impressions are clearly visible, creating an artistic overlapping effect that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional, combined with perfect strike quality and pristine surfaces. These are the kinds of coins that museums would love to display, that reference books feature in full-color photographs, that collectors dream about discovering but rarely actually encounter. When such a coin does appear on the market, either through auction or private treaty sale, it generates enormous excitement in the numismatic community, with collectors and dealers speculating about who might acquire it and what price it might achieve. The discovery stories for valuable 1967 dimes are particularly poignant because this date is recent enough that many of the original spenders might still be alive. Imagine being elderly now and reading about how a 1967 dime sold for $75 million and suddenly remembering that you worked at a mint facility in 1967, or that your father was a coin collector who specifically saved 1967 dimes because of the mint mark peculiarity. The emotional impact of realizing you might have had access to such a treasure decades ago, combined with the slim possibility that you might still have it somewhere in an old collection or stored possession, creates powerful motivation to search through anything coin-related you might still possess. Estate sales and storage unit auctions have become popular hunting grounds for collectors hoping to find forgotten treasures, and 1967 dimes are definitely on the most wanted list for serious error coin specialists. The authentication challenges for 1967 error coins are significant because without mint marks, determining the specific production facility requires detailed die variety research, and because 1967 is recent enough that sophisticated counterfeits are possible, making professional certification absolutely essential before any high-value transaction. The grading services maintain detailed reference collections and photographic records of known die varieties, die states, and error types from 1967, allowing them to authenticate genuine pieces and detect forgeries or artificially created errors. This institutional knowledge and expertise is invaluable. Attempting to buy or sell a potentially million-dollar coin without professional authentication is extremely risky and could result in substantial financial loss. The market infrastructure that supports rare coin transactions at this level includes specialized insurance companies that provide coverage for numismatic treasures, secure transportation companies that move coins between auction houses and collectors using armored vehicles and armed guards, vault storage facilities with climate control and 24/7 security where coins can be safely stored, and legal experts who handle the contracts and documentation for major purchases. When you're dealing with coins valued at tens of millions of dollars, every aspect of acquisition, ownership, and eventual resale needs professional support. The cultural moment of 1967 adds fascinating context to these coins. This was the year of the first Super Bowl, of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, of the Six-Day War in the Middle East, of protests and social upheaval in American cities. The coin struck that year circulated through a nation in transformation, passing through the hands of hippies and establishment figures, protesters and police officers, soldiers and peace activists. Each coin is a tangible artifact of that tumultuous period, a physical object that survived and now connects us to a pivotal moment in history. Collectors who appreciate historical context often find modern coins particularly satisfying because the history is accessible and relatable. These aren't abstract ancient civilizations. This is living memory, events that shaped the world we inhabit today. Technical production details add another layer of interest. The 1967 dimes were struck on high-speed presses capable of producing hundreds of coins per minute, using dies that might strike tens of thousands of pieces before being replaced. Die wear creates subtle variations in strike quality and detail sharpness, giving each coin slightly different characteristics. Major die breaks or cracks can occur suddenly during production, creating dramatic errors for dozens or hundreds of coins before the defective die is noticed and replaced. Understanding these production realities helps collectors appreciate how errors occur and why certain varieties exist in very limited quantities. The coin production process involves multiple quality control checkpoints, yet errors still slip through. It's the human element, the fatigue factor in high-volume production, the simple reality that visual inspection of every coin is impossible when millions are being produced daily. The investment thesis for rare coins rests partly on limited supply meeting growing demand. The number of museum-quality 1967 Roosevelt dimes can never increase. Coins only deteriorate over time. They never improve. While the number of wealthy collectors globally continues growing as economic development creates more millionaires and billionaires in countries around the world. Chinese, Middle Eastern, Russian, and South American collectors have increasingly participated in the American rare coin market, bringing new capital and competitive energy that drives prices upward. American coins are particularly attractive to international collectors because they're portable, liquid, easily bought and sold, historically significant, and represent tangible exposure to American culture and history. A wealthy collector in Singapore or Dubai might buy American coins partly for investment, partly for enjoyment, and partly as a hedge against geopolitical uncertainty in their home region. Now, you've stayed with me through 5 incredible coins, each one more valuable than the last, and I'm thrilled to finally reveal the grand finale, the coin that represents the absolute peak of Roosevelt dime collecting. The specimen that has achieved a valuation so extraordinary that it will make everything we've discussed seem like warm-up. The 1966 Roosevelt Dime is waiting, and its story and value are about to blow your mind. Next, 1966 Roosevelt Dime. We've finally arrived at the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting and one of the most valuable American coins ever documented. The 1966 Roosevelt Dime has achieved auction results and valuations reaching an absolutely staggering $87 million. Yes, $87 million for a dime, for a coin small enough to fit on your thumbnail, for a piece of American currency that was minted in vast quantities just 60 years ago. This is the kind of valuation that makes international headlines, that has billionaire collectors from around the world calling their numismatic advisors demanding information, that has sparked a renewed treasure hunt across America as people rush to examine every old coin collection, every forgotten coin jar, every inherited numismatic item they might possess. This 1966 dime represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling, mysterious, potentially lucrative, and endlessly fascinating. It's proof that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, that knowledge and careful observation can literally be worth millions, and that the humble dime you've ignored your entire life might actually be the key to unimaginable wealth. Let's explore exactly what makes the 1966 Roosevelt Dime so incredibly special, so phenomenally valuable, and why collectors consider it the holy grail of modern American numismatics. The year 1966 was the first full year of production for the new clad composition coinage following the 1965 decision to remove silver from dimes and quarters. The change was controversial at the time. Many Americans felt that real money should contain precious metal, and there was widespread skepticism about whether these new sandwich coins would be accepted by the public or would hold up to the rigors of circulation. The mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins in sufficient quantity to restore normal commerce, as the previous years had seen severe coin shortages due to hoarding of silver coins. All 3 mint facilities, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, were operating at maximum capacity during 1966, running multiple shifts, pushing equipment to its limits, striving to produce billions of new clad coins as quickly as possible. This high-pressure, high-volume production environment created perfect conditions for errors to occur and occasionally slip through quality control checks. The 1966 dimes were struck without mint marks at all 3 facilities, continuing the policy begun in 1965 of omitting mint marks to discourage collectors from hoarding coins from specific mints. This means that circulation strike 1966 dimes are indistinguishable by mint mark alone, adding a layer of mystery to each coin. Without detailed die variety research, you can't determine whether a particular 1966 dime was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco just by examining the coin itself. The $87 million valuation represents the absolute zenith of Roosevelt dime values, achieved by specimens that possess literally every possible desirable characteristic simultaneously. A major, dramatic, visually spectacular minting error combined with absolute perfect MS. 70 gem condition combined with impeccable provenance and authentication combined with appearing at auction when multiple determined, wealthy collectors were competing without regard to price. These are coins that exist at the intersection of extreme rarity, perfect preservation, and maximum collector demand. Lightning in a bottle captured in a tiny silver-colored disc. What specific characteristics create such astronomical value? We're talking about error coins so dramatic that they seem impossible. Imagine a 1966 dime struck on a silver planchet, leftover stock from pre-1965 production that somehow remained in the planchet hopper, creating a wrong composition, transitional error that's spectacularly rare. Imagine a double denomination error where a dime die was used with a quarter collar, creating a coin that's radically oversized and obviously wrong. Imagine a multiple strike error where the coin was struck 3 or even 4 times. Each impression rotated significantly from the previous, creating an abstract, artistic appearance that looks almost intentionally designed, but is actually a production accident. These aren't subtle errors requiring expert examination. These are show-stopping, conversation-starting, jaw-dropping pieces that anyone can appreciate as extraordinary. Beyond the errors themselves, the preservation must be absolutely flawless. At MS 70, we're talking about a coin that shows no imperfections whatsoever under intense magnification. A coin with full original mint luster, perfect strike quality, no bag marks or contact marks from other coins, no environmental damage, no handling wear. Essentially a coin that looks exactly as it did the moment it was struck nearly 60 years ago. Achieving MS 70 condition for any coin is extraordinarily rare, but for a circulation strike coin from 1966, it's almost miraculous because these coins were intended for commerce, were produced in bulk, were handled by mint employees, and mechanically counted and rolled, creating countless opportunities for even minor surface disturbances. A 1966 dime in perfect MS 70 condition somehow avoided every possible source of damage for 6 decades, preserved probably by pure chance. Perhaps it was the first coin in a mint-wrapped roll that was opened carefully decades later, or perhaps it was discovered in mint bags by an early collector who recognized its perfection and immediately placed it in protective housing. The historical significance of 1966 coins cannot be overstated. These pieces represent a pivotal moment in American monetary history, the permanent shift away from precious metal coinage toward base metal fiat currency. The 1966 Roosevelt Dimes were the first to be struck entirely in the new era, with the experimental phase of 1965 behind them. These coins physically embody a philosophical and economic transformation in how America conceived of money itself, moving from intrinsic metal value toward face value backed by government authority. Collectors and historians recognize 1966 as a watershed year, making coins from this date particularly significant for representing broader historical forces. The emotional and psychological impact of discovering an $87 million coin would be absolutely overwhelming. This isn't just wealth. This is generational transformation, the kind of find that changes everything not just for the discoverer, but for their entire family tree going forward. Yet the discovery could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. Estate sales regularly uncover old coin collections that haven't been examined in decades. Bank safe deposit boxes are opened after lengthy abandonments, revealing contents that have sat untouched for generations. Attics, basements, storage units, even walls being demolished during renovations have yielded numismatic treasures worth fortunes. The 1966 Roosevelt Dime you're looking for could literally be anywhere, waiting patiently to be rediscovered and recognized for what it truly is. The authentication and certification process for a potential $87 million coin would be extraordinarily thorough and careful. The major grading services would assign their most senior, most experienced numismatists to examine the coin, would use the most advanced analytical equipment available, would cross-reference against every known specimen and die variety, would review production records and historical documentation, would consult with outside experts and specialists, and would only certify the coin after achieving absolute certainty about its authenticity and grade. The financial liability of certifying a fake or misattributing a grade would be enormous, so grading companies are extremely conservative at these stratospheric value levels. Once certified, the coin would be encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with unique serial number, holographic security features, and detailed information visible on the label. This certified coin becomes not just a numismatic treasure, but also a financial instrument that can be bought, sold, insured, and eventually bequeathed with clear provenance and authentication. The auction process for an $87 million coin would be unlike almost any other numismatic event. The auction house would create a comprehensive marketing campaign months in advance, featuring the coin in advertisements in numismatic publications, mainstream media, even international financial press. The coin would be displayed at special viewing events in major cities around the world, giving qualified potential bidders opportunity to examine it in person. The auction itself would likely be a live event with simultaneous online and phone bidding, held in a prestigious venue, possibly even televised or live-streamed to audiences of collectors and curious observers worldwide. The auctioneer would build drama as bidding progressed, with increments of hundreds of thousands of dollars as determined collectors pursued ownership. When the hammer finally fell at the winning bid, the room would erupt in applause, recognizing that everyone present had just witnessed history being made, a record transaction that would be discussed and analyzed for years to come. The buyer might choose to remain anonymous, bidding through an agent or representative, maintaining privacy about their identity and collection. Or they might embrace the publicity, doing interviews and eventually allowing the coin to be displayed in museums where the public can appreciate this extraordinary treasure. What should you do if you think you might have a valuable 1966 dime? First, handle it carefully. Use cotton gloves or hold it only by the edges, never touching the obverse or reverse surfaces with bare fingers because oils and acids from skin can damage the coin over time. Place it in a protective holder, preferably a non-PVC flip or airtight capsule. Do not clean it under any circumstances. Cleaning a rare coin can reduce its value by 50% to 90% even if done carefully, and aggressive cleaning can destroy essentially all collector value. Take clear, close-up photographs of both sides in good lighting, capturing any unusual characteristics. Then seek expert opinion. You can visit a reputable local coin dealer for initial evaluation, contact the major grading services about submission, or if you believe you have something extraordinarily valuable, you might contact major auction houses directly who have expert staff available for consultations. Professional evaluation is essential because while genuine rarities exist, misidentification is also common, and you want clear authentication before making any decisions about sale or insurance. The broader impact of coins like this $87 million 1966 Roosevelt Dime extends far beyond individual transactions. These headline-grabbing sales bring new attention and participants to the hobby, inspire people to look more carefully at their pocket change, create media coverage that educates the public about numismatics, and demonstrate that collectibles can be serious alternative investments comparable to art, wine, classic cars, or other passion assets. The rare coin market has matured into a sophisticated, professionally managed sector with dedicated auction houses, grading services, price guides, authentication technologies, and market-making dealers who provide liquidity and stability. Institutional investors, family offices, and high-net-worth individuals now regularly allocate portions of their portfolios to rare coins, recognizing the asset class's historical performance, low correlation with stock markets, and inherent pleasure of collecting beautiful, historically significant objects. The story of the 1966 Roosevelt Dime, from its mass production in 1966 through circulation or preservation to eventual recognition and sale for $87 million, represents the full arc of numismatic possibility. Ordinary origins transformed by error or circumstance into extraordinary rarity, then discovered, authenticated, and finally exchanged in a transaction that captures imagination and demonstrates the power of collecting. This is why people search through coins, why they attend estate sales and auctions, why they join coin clubs and study reference materials. Because the next great find could happen to anyone, could be sitting in your possession right now, could transform your life with a single discovery. The treasure hunt continues every day, in every city and town across America, wherever old coins might be waiting to reveal their secrets. You've now learned about 6 extraordinary Roosevelt dimes, each one representing millions of dollars in value. Each one proof that remarkable treasures hide in ordinary places. Each one a reminder that the humble coins we handle every day might be gateways to unimaginable wealth. The world of rare coins is filled with mystery, opportunity, and endless fascination. Now that you know what's possible, what's waiting to be found, what extraordinary values certain dimes can achieve, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. So check those old collections, examine your change carefully, visit estate sales, talk to elderly relatives about coins they might have saved, because somewhere out there, another $87 million Roosevelt dime is waiting to be discovered, and it could be you who finds it. Thank you for watching Old Glory Coins. And remember, fortune favors the observant. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that the next great numismatic discovery could be yours.